Hey everyone, welcome to 59 Tops Friday, presented by Wax Pack Wisdom, where we talk baseball history through the cards we love. My name is Jake T. O'Donnell. We built the iconic 1959 Topps baseball set, and in this series we're going through every card to talk about the players, teams, and people who made up Major League Baseball in 1959. Today, we'll cover cards 260 through 269 in the set. Card number 260 belongs to Early Wynn of the Chicago White Sox. 1959 was Wynn's 19th season in the major leagues. Wynn debuted in the majors on September 13, 1939, and he pitched his final game exactly 24 years later in 1963. In between, Wynn had one of the finest careers of any pitcher in the 20th century. Fiery competitor who pitched through injuries, appeared on some of the most memorable teams of all time, saved his best years for late in his career, and earned his way to Cooperstown. The Senators signed the Alabama native in 1937, and Wynn got his first MLB action 2 years later, appearing in 3 games. He wouldn't become a rotation mainstay until 1942, and turned into a top starter the following year. Wynn served in the military in 1945 and part of 1946, and made his first All-Star team in 1947. After a down year in 1948, Wynn was traded to the Indians, where he learned several new pitches, and developed into a top starter in the American League, alongside a rotation with fellow Hall of Famers Bob Feller and Bob Lemon. Wynn was the AL ERA champ in 1950, led the league in innings pitched in 1951, and won 23 games in 1952. In 1954, the Indians had one of the best regular season teams in the game's history, winning 111 games, and Wynn was the anchor of Al Lopez's staff. He led the AL with 23 wins in 270 and two-thirds innings. While Wynn pitched well in his one World Series start that year, the Indians lost that game and were stunningly swept by the Giants in the series. 1955 was the first of 6 consecutive All-Star appearances for Wynn. During this time, Wynn was effective even while pitching through painful episodes of gout. He had a reputation as a fearless, intimidating presence on the mound who threw inside and hated to be removed from games, often taking out his frustration on clubhouse furniture. This happened more often in a losing season in 1957, and after that year he was traded to the White Sox, reuniting him with Lopez. Fans of the Pale Hose were upset that beloved slugger Minnie Minoso was moved in the trade for Wynn, but they soon grew to appreciate their new pitcher. In 1959, Wynn was again the anchor of an AL pennant-winning staff. His 22 wins led the AL, as did his 255 and two-thirds innings pitched. For his efforts, Wynn was the 1959 Cy Young Award winner. At the time, the award was handed out to the best pitcher in both major leagues. Wynn struggled in the World Series and the White Sox lost to the Dodgers. His pitching dropped off after 1960, and with 299 wins under his belt, he latched on once again with Cleveland for 1963, notching his 300th and final career victory in July. Wynn was then an MLB pitching coach, minor league manager, and broadcaster for the Blue Jays and White Sox. He was fully convinced he was going to be the last pitcher to win 300 games, but Gaylord Perry was the next to surpass the threshold in 1982. Wynn was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972. Card number 261 belongs to Gene Stevens of the Boston Red Sox. 1959 was Stevens' 6th year in the big leagues. Stevens spent 12 seasons in the big leagues total, spread between the Red Sox, Orioles, Athletics, and White Sox. He spent a year in Japan with the Nippon Professional Baseball League and the Chunichi Dragons. After signing with the Red Sox in 1951, he made his major league debut in 1952. While playing for the Red Sox, he found himself in the shadow of some big names with the club, including Ted Williams, Jimmy Pearsall, and Jackie Jensen. At one point, he was nicknamed Williams' caddy, as he was often Ted Williams' replacement in left field. On June 18, 1953, Stevens became the first major league player in the modern era to have 3 hits in a single inning. This record was matched by Johnny Damon in 2003, who was also with the Red Sox at the time. Although a competent and capable player for the Red Sox, Stevens never had many opportunities to make a big impact, but when he was given the chance, he did deliver, which led to him receiving an Unsung Hero Award at the Boston Baseball Writers' Winter Dinner in 1957. Although Stevens had a good relationship with Ted Williams, Stevens did want to play regularly. He would go on to get traded to the Orioles with a chip in his wrist, and a later knee injury impacted his later career. He appeared in 964 Major League games with 1,913 at-bats, a .240 average, 37 home runs, and 207 RBI. After his professional baseball career, he went on to work for an energy company in Oklahoma City in the marketing department until his retirement in 1991. Stevens died in 2019 at the age of 86. Card number 262 is the next multiplayer card of the 1959 Topps set, Hitters Foes, featuring Dodgers pitchers Johnny Podres, Clem Labine, and Hall of Famer Don Drysdale. Here's what Topps had to say about the trio on the back of the card. Johnny, Clem, and Don are determined to lift the Dodgers back into the first division this year. If any three hurlers in the league can do it, this is the trio. Johnny is a shutout specialist, and in 1957 he led the National League with 6 whitewashes. In the 1955 series, he was the big hero, beating the Yankees twice to bring the Dodgers their first world championship. Although his teammates may not have been quite at home in LA last year, Johnny certainly was. He won 11 of his 13 games in the Coliseum. Clem is the bullpen specialist who loves to work. In 1955, he saw action in 60 games to lead the senior circuit in that department. Last season, Don specialized in beating the Braves. He set down the NL champs 5 times without suffering a defeat. He also tied a record for home runs by pitchers with 7 circuit smashes. Card number 263 belongs to Bud Daley of the Kansas City Athletics. 1959 was Daley's 5th season in the big leagues. His first name was actually Levitt, which was also his father's name, so he took on the nickname Bud, later legally changing his first name to Buddy. He suffered complications to his right arm during his birth, so he spent most of his life unable to raise his right arm to comb his hair. Daley, luckily, was naturally left-handed, as he became a knuckleball pitcher who spent time with the Athletics, Indians, and Yankees. He was a member of the 1961 and 1962 World Champion Yankees, including closing out the 5th and final game of the 1961 World Series. He was a 4-time All-Star, making both teams in 1959 and 1960. It was said that he did not like pitching to Yogi Berra because Berra never let Daley shake him off. Daley reportedly had an affinity for pork chops. Before one game, his wife Dorothy made him pork chops, and he went on to pitch a good game. Thus, his habit of eating pork chops before every home game was born. He ended his big league career with a 60-64 win-loss record and an ERA of 4.03. As of this recording, Daley is 91 years old. He will turn 92 in October of 2024. He enjoys playing golf and has a single-digit handicap. Card number 264 belongs to Chico Carrasquel of the Baltimore Orioles. 1959 was his 10th and final season in the majors. Carrasquel was a defensive wizard, playing almost his entire career at shortstop, and was one of the first stars of the American game to hail from Venezuela. In Spanish-speaking countries, Carrasquel was known by the nickname El Gato de Venezuela because he moved like a cat on the field. He was originally signed by the Dodgers out of his home country, but Pee Wee Reese was entrenched at the shortstop position, and Carrasquel was shipped out to the White Sox in a deal. He debuted in 1950 for the White Sox, and his sterling defense and .282 average earned him a third-place finish in AL Rookie of the Year voting. Carrasquel was an All-Star in 1951 and again for 3 straight years starting in 1953. However, the arrival of fellow Venezuelan defensive hero Luis Aparicio on the south side led to another trade for Carrasquel, this time to the Indians. Years later, the Hall of Famer Aparicio said that Carrasquel was his hero and mentor. Carrasquel would spend parts of the next 3 seasons in Cleveland, followed by a part of 1958 in Cleveland, and then in 1959 with Baltimore. He continued to play and later managed in Venezuela, scouted for big league teams, and was a White Sox broadcaster. Carrasquel was in the inaugural Venezuelan Baseball Hall of Fame class in 2003. Card number 265 belongs to Ron Klein of the Pittsburgh Pirates. 1959 was Klein's 6th season in the big leagues. Klein was a right-handed pitcher who would spend 17 years in the big leagues playing for the Pirates, Cardinals, Angels, Tigers, Senators, Twins, Giants, Red Sox, and Braves. His time in the big leagues was interrupted by 2 years of military service. He survived a hunting accident around the beginning of 1961 when a brass shell exploded, leaving 3 fragments of brass in both of his eyes. Luckily, all 3 fragments were removed without impacting his eyesight. After the 1964 season, Klein was part of a Goodwill State Department visit to Central and South America. In 1968, Klein was back with the Pirates, where teammate Roberto Clemente would ask reporters why they did not give Klein more publicity, as Clemente believed he deserved. Clemente offered to mock interview Klein, including asking him why he was a better reliever than starter. Klein ended his career with a 114 and 144 record in 736 appearances, mostly as a relief pitcher, with an ERA of 3.75 and 989 strikeouts. He took time after the 1968 season to visit wounded American service members around the globe on a trip sponsored by the USO. Following his career in baseball, Klein returned to his small hometown of Callery, Pennsylvania, where he served as mayor. He also purchased a pub there, which was named Ron Klein's Bullpen. Klein died in 2002 at the age of 70. Card number 266 belongs to Woody Held of the Cleveland Indians. 1959 was Held's fourth year in the big leagues. Held spread his time in the majors between the Yankees, Athletics, Indians, Senators, Orioles, Angels, and White Sox. Held's name had a T at the end of it, but he changed it to avoid confusion with pronunciation. He played both infield and outfield. He was the first Indian shortstop to hit at least 20 homers in a season, achieving it in 3 consecutive years from 1959 through 1961. He also held the Indians' career record for most home runs by a shortstop at 85 until it was broken by Johnny Peralta in 2009. Held was a member of the 1966 world champion Orioles, but he did not play in the World Series. Held ended his 14-season career with a .240 batting average and 179 home runs and 559 RBI in 1,390 games played. Following his career, Held competitively raced snowmobiles and operated a 600-acre dude ranch. In his hometown, he opened the first pizzeria and started the first Little League. He died in 2009 at the age of 77. Card number 267 belongs to John Romanowski of the Washington Senators. 1959 was his third and final year in the major leagues. Romanowski was born in Illinois, and he was originally signed by the Cardinals before the 1949 season. He pitched in 2 games for the Cardinals in 1953. After several seasons pitching in the Cardinals minor leagues, Romanowski spent 1 season pitching for an Eastern League team, and then was acquired by the Senators, where he appeared in 18 games in 1958 and 12 games in 1959. In total, Romanowski pitched 101 and 1/3 MLB innings with a 5.15 ERA. He appeared in the minors in 1960 and 1961 before calling it a career. Card number 268 belongs to Tito Francona of the Detroit Tigers. 1959 was Francona's 4th big league season. Francona was signed out of Pennsylvania by the Browns in 1952 ahead of their move to Baltimore in 1954. He debuted for Baltimore in 1956, beginning a 15-season big league career where he was a dependable outfield and first base bat. Francona was part of trades in 3 consecutive years, starting in 1957, first to the White Sox, then Tigers, and then the Indians on the eve of the 1959 season. Despite not playing every day, Francona hit .363 in 122 games and finished 5th in AL MVP voting. In 1960, he led the AL in doubles with 36, and in 1961, he was an AL All-Star. The Cardinals purchased Francona from the Indians before 1965, and he would spend the final 6 years of his career bouncing around from the Cardinals to the Phillies, Braves, A's, and Brewers. After baseball, Francona spent years as the Parks and Recreation Director for Beaver County, Pennsylvania. His son, Terry, who has long sported the nickname Tito, played parts of 10 seasons in the majors, and after time as a minor league manager and MLB coach, embarked on a 23-season career as an MLB manager, winning the 2004 and 2007 World Series with the Red Sox, and taking the Indians to the World Series in 2016. Card number 269 belongs to Jack Meyer of the Philadelphia Phillies. This was Meyer's 5th season in the majors. A Philadelphia native, he spent all 7 of his MLB seasons with his hometown team. In his rookie year in 1955, Meyer finished 36 games for the Phils and recorded an NL-leading 16 saves, at a time in which that stat was not in vogue. Still, he managed to finish 2nd in NL Rookie of the Year voting to Bill Verdon. Ultimately, that ended up being Meyer's best season in the majors, and he never pitched more than 100 innings in any season thereafter. After his career ended, Meyer worked as a sales rep for a cardboard box company in the Philadelphia area. Sadly, Meyer died suddenly of a heart attack in 1967 at the age of 35. That's going to do it for this edition of 59 Tops Friday on Waxpack Wisdom. Today's episode was written by Abby O'Donnell and Jake T. O'Donnell. Do you have a story about one of the people, players, or teams we discussed today? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our Waxpack Wisdom content. In the video description, you will find our source material for this episode, links to where you can follow us on all social media channels, as well as a list of our favorite nonprofits and charities. Please consider a donation to one of them if you enjoyed this content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Waxpack Wisdom. Take care.